ahead and check in the chat. If we haven't met, my name's Joe Bunting. Very nice to see all of you. Yeah, in the chat, go ahead and tell me hi. Let me know where you're coming from. I want to hear where everyone's from. It'd be nice to check in there in the chat. We have a lot to cover today. We're talking about how to write nonfiction, how to take your idea, and I'm assuming that if you're here, you have an idea for a book already. And if you don't, that's okay. We can come up with some ideas together. How to take your idea and turn it into a finished book, into a published book, maybe traditionally published book. We're going to talk about nonfiction today. We spend a lot of time at The Right Practice talking about fiction. I love fiction. Today we're focusing almost entirely on nonfiction. And I'm a nonfiction writer. I've written more than 12 books, more than 20 books, to be honest. I've helped many clients write books, edit books, get published, coach them through the writing process. I've been published in every single way possible, from self-publishing to hybrid publishing and even traditional publishing. My books have gotten more than $500,000 in advances from traditional publishers, which is cool. And I'm excited to share what I've learned about the process and how you can experience things like that as well. And I should say, not always my books alone, right? I'm helping clients get those book deals as well. So we're going to talk about how to do that with your idea and your nonfiction books. So just checking in here, I see a lot of familiar faces, some new faces. Hi, Tony. Hi, Patrick from Montreal. Joan from the Poconos. Karen is here from Indiana. Hey, Karen. Debbie is here from Southern California. There's someone from England, someone from Munich. V. Parker, Victoria from Canada. Very cool. Welcome, everyone. Very nice to see you. We are, again, talking about nonfiction. So why don't I just share this slide. This is me. Welcome. We're talking about how to write nonfiction. If you ever want to reach out and let me know if you have any questions about the nonfiction writing process, I have my email there. You can also find me on Threads. I post regularly on Threads, especially I'm also on some other platforms, but it seems like people like Threads the most right now, at least when they interact with me. So you can find me there at JH Bunting. And Nicole is here from Missouri. Very cool. So we're going to get right into it. Okay, this is going to be part workshop, part learning experience, part encouragement. But I want to begin by just talking about maybe one of the most important things. Excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold, so bear with me a little bit today. One of the most important things, which is coming up with a premise for your nonfiction book. Okay, so what is a premise? A premise is a single sentence summary of your book's main idea. All right, so the idea is you're going to take your entire book and you're going to turn it into one sentence. Easy, right? No problem. But I do have a formula to help you through this. All right, and this is in part from me and in part from my friend Jeff Goins, who is a Wall Street Journal bestselling nonfiction writer. And the formula goes like this. Everyone thinks something about your topic, something that's wrong, or at least different for what you say. But the truth is this, okay? So one sentence where you're really creating a strong contrast. You're inserting some surprise around your idea. Everyone thinks this way, but the truth is this way. And there are three keys to this, three things that this sentence needs to contain. Okay, it needs to have either a problem that you're solving in your book, or some kind of promise. All right, so the 4-hour work week would be an example of a promise, right? Or battling Alzheimer's would be a problem. Just some examples here, right? And then you'll have to have a person who is either the champion for that idea. That might be you, or it might be your audience, but some kind of person. And then finally, your unique solution, how you're tackling the problem or the promise in your book. Okay? And as a bonus, one thing that great books do, they have something special. They have something unique. This isn't really quantifiable, but they have something that makes them different. Okay, can feel a little bit like a formula, right? And in this case, we do want to bring something uniquely our own, right? So let me just give you some examples. I would love for you, though, as we're going through this, to just start working on your idea. I'm going to give you a chance to share your idea in the chat, and we can just take a moment to look at our ideas and think about how it might look for your book. This sentence really matters, by the way, and I'll tell you more about why in a second. But let's look at some examples from some client books. This is from my friend Stephen Carson. I coached him through the writing process on his book, Work is Fun, which was traditionally published. It came out in April. He wrote a nice little note to me. That's so nice. Everyone thinks work is a 4-letter word. Well, it is. Something they have to do so that they can enjoy their real life. But the truth is, work is fun when teams make time and space for the 7 things Stephen Carson, founder of King of Pops, shares in his debut book, Work is Fun. So let's just think about that, using our 3 things, right? A problem, a person, and a unique solution. So the problem is work, right? Work isn't always fun, but the promise is that it can be fun. You don't necessarily have to have the problem and the promise in the same sentence, but in this case it does, right? Which is nice. Work can be fun if you do these 7 things. The 7 things are the unique solution, all right? And then the person is, of course, Stephen Carson, founder of King of Pops. Okay, you see how that works? That it is, in fact, possible to get all of that into a single sentence. As we're going through these, just be thinking about your idea. Have a piece of paper. Be writing down your idea. This really matters. It's actually going to help you in your book writing process. Even today, we're going to make progress on your nonfiction book. Sound good? Let's go to the next one. This is from my friend Jen Chen. Here is her book. It recently came out just this month, I believe. Maybe last month, because I guess we're now in October. So yeah, it came out very recently. Jen Chen from IBP. Okay, very cool. Everyone today feels disconnected. And in the midst of that, they try to solve it by looking outside of themselves. A better church, a better family, closer friends, all the right spiritual habits. But the truth is, God wants to meet us within our own weird, culturally specific, dysfunctional family, messy stories. All right? All one sentence, right? But we have a problem, looking outside of ourselves, a solution, finding God in our own story, and a person, in this case, God, or just Jen Chen, right? Let's look at one more example from my friend Jason Redman, who's a Navy SEAL, and his wife Erica Redman. Their book, let's see, it's called Mission Invincible Marriage. It came out February, just shortly after Valentine's Day. Very good book. Check it out. They said this: everyone expects to have a good marriage if they find the right person, but to truly thrive and create an invincible marriage, couples need to develop skills to approach marriage like wounded warrior and retired Navy SEAL Jason Redman and his wife Erica Redman has a mission with tough-minded planning, full-hearted commitment, and clear communication. All right? So do you sort of get how you can do this for your story? And I do want you to write your story write your book down, write your idea down in this form, in a single sentence. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. All right, I see Debbie has already posted hers, which is awesome. Overachiever. Well done, Debbie. But if you want to share yours in the chat, we'll take a minute or two to do this, right? I want you to do some work today. This isn't just a chance to hear from me and get all the answers, but I do want you to figure out how to do this for your book. All right, so we'll just take a minute, and just again, there are 3 things that you'll want to include in this. I'll put these 3 things back on the screen so you can see them. I'm going to pause my audio. You can give this a try. All right, let's just take maybe 20 more seconds and we'll come back together. If you want to share your idea in the chat, that would be great. I see some great ideas there so far already. All right, let's come back together. Well done, everyone. You can still share your idea there in the chat. You're welcome to do that, but we'll take a look at some of these ideas now. Here's one from Marilyn. Very nice. Marilyn says, everyone thinks teaching is just for those who are naturally gifted at it, but teaching is really a complex set of skills that can be learned. Very nice. So just looking at this, I would just always encourage you to be kind of specific. It's good to have numbers in these ideas. It's good to have a specific solution to the problem, okay? And in this situation, Marilyn, I do see the problem or promise very clearly. The person is missing, so you might look to introduce yourself very briefly. Why do you have authority to talk about learning how to teach? Are you a teacher yourself? You could talk about how many years of experience you have teaching, or any certifications you have. And then your unique solution. How do people actually learn to teach, right? Because the way that you've described it, it's a complex set of skills. Seems a little overwhelming. So you might just describe the way in which you learn to teach, your unique method. You can even coin a unique method name, right? Very good. Well done, Marilyn. All right. Let's just take a look again at this. Here's one from Debbie. And I think it's tricky when we're talking about historical events. We're going to talk about historical books. These sentences don't always work perfectly, especially the everyone thinks version of this sentence doesn't always work perfectly with biography or history. But here we go. Everyone thinks the islanders hate the Americans bringing the war, but the truth is the invaders brought many good things. So again, I would just encourage you to have the person in there. Maybe in this case, it's the islanders. This is definitely turning the topic on its head, which is good. But what is just try to we always want to be as specific, especially in these sentences, as possible. So if you can think about what some of the good things are, and how you're going to convey those, right? Like one of the things you'll see in this example, for example, shares in his debut book, Work is Fun, right? So you can talk about your book and what it's going to convey. Does that make sense? All right. I'm looking at V. Parker's. Everyone thinks that having an immature, incompetent caretaker results in the child of becoming an immature, competent adult. But the truth is that children are resilient. I love that idea, and it's a really interesting promise. And I'm just wondering who the person is in this situation. What is the promise, right? Kids are resilient. Is this just meant to be an information book? Are people meant to learn something and have some practical takeaways from it? Maybe you could focus in on just what the unique solution and the promise is a little bit more and talk about what people are going to learn from your book. All right? I'm just looking through. We'll take one more. There's so many great ideas here. Everyone thinks a concussion is no big deal, but the truth is it can change your life. Again, I just want to see more of a unique solution. These are definitely really interesting way to turn the thing on its head, but we're looking for a solution, what people can actually learn. All right. These are good. Some of these are more memoir driven, which is fine and great. Some of these are more focused on historical events. We're going to talk about those as well. Well done, everyone. We've made progress today. I love it. So let's just take a step back for a second and talk about why we write books. You have an idea for a book, I'm assuming, and I've seen many of your ideas. You want to bring your idea into the world. Why are we here? Why are we doing this? Because writing a book isn't easy. You may know this already. Getting published isn't easy. Maybe you've experienced how hard this journey can be. Maybe you're experiencing it right now. Writing a book is hard, so why? What's the point? And one of the reasons that we do this, and especially for nonfiction specifically, is because books have the power to change people's lives. Maybe you've read a book that has changed your life, that has made you think about something in a different way, that has made you unlock a piece of your potential. Maybe that has opened up something new for you. Give me a thumbs up or raised hand, or let me know in the chat if a book has changed your life. And maybe that's one of the reasons why you're here, because you want to have the opportunities to change someone else's life, right? I know from my own experience that books have changed my life, changed my career, changed the way I think about things, have transformed me in so many ways, right? And that's what's so exciting about books. And they are different than almost any other form of communication, right? They are potentially more life-changing than so many other forms, more so than a speech, certainly more so than a social media post or a blog post or a newspaper article. Books have the power to change lives. And I think that's why we're here. That's why we want to do this, to change the lives of those around us, right? So we're going to talk today about how to do that, how to take your idea and turn it into a finished book, how to become a published author. And sometimes when I share with people, they start to wonder, can I do that? Is it really possible to finish my book? Is it possible to get published, to get traditionally published? And the answer is that yes, you absolutely can get published. This is possible. It's not easy. Writing a book is never easy, but it is possible. So here are just a couple of people that I've worked with and helped them get published. So this is the Redmonds. I mentioned them earlier. They are a Navy SEAL couple. They are currently published by a big 4, big 5 publisher. Oops, I forgot to change Jen's bio. That's so embarrassing. But this is Jen Chen. She was working with us a few years ago and had her book picked up by IVP. And it is now out in the world, which is so great. Dim Sum and Faith. This is Stephen. Stephen is an Atlanta legend. He is the founder of King of Pops, and he had an idea for a book, and we coached him through the book writing process, and he published his first book earlier this year. And I have done this as well. So I'm actually a Wall Street Journal best-selling writer. This does not have my book on it. But you have to have something, right? Like you have to have some kind of picture. My book hit the Wall Street Journal bestseller list in 2021. I've since had many more books, traditionally published books, mostly that I've worked on as a ghostwriter or co-writer, but also some of my own books as well. Okay, and I have a whole library behind me, you can see in the picture, of people who we've helped take their idea and turn it into a finished, published book. And that sounds nice, but you might still be wondering, great for you, Joe, great for the people that you've worked with, the people in your community, but how do I do that? And I do want to share some resources with you just to help us get going. We're going to talk more about how to do this. But I want to, first of all, just in the chat, share this link here to get our nonfiction resources. We have a lot of free resources at The Right Practice, and anyone who is part of our starter plan can get those. I've just posted the link to that in the chat. All right, and there are some specific resources. We have a ton of resources there, but the two that I really want you to focus in on are this book proposal template, because we're going to be talking through the book proposal process today, and our writing and publishing checklist, okay, which will walk you step by step through the writing and publishing process for nonfiction. So make sure to go grab those there. And again, the link is therightpractice.com/join, and it's in the chat, and it's probably, I think, in the description of this video. In fact, it is. And you can get a free starter membership and get those resources. They'll be really useful. Patrick is asking, will this video be published to watch later? It will be live. It's live right now on YouTube, and the recording will be available for, the foreseeable future. All right. So again, we're talking about aspiring writers versus published authors. And when I talk to aspiring writers, especially around nonfiction, I find that they do things incorrectly. Not necessarily wrong. There's no wrong way to write a book, but there are some ways that make writing a nonfiction book particularly much more difficult, and especially for getting published traditionally. Okay? Because the process of traditional publishing for nonfiction, in specifically nonfiction, is weird, and it might be not what you expect. It's not how almost everyone I talk to expects. All right? So we're going to talk through 4 different myths. I'm going to share what you should do differently. Okay? And then we'll have some time to do a little bit more work on our books together. Sound good? So let's get into our first myth, which is this. Is the myth of just getting started. I just need to work on my book. Who here has ever just had an idea for a book? Maybe you have one right now and you've done this, and you just flip open to page 1, chapter 1, and you just start writing. And you think, yes, I'm going to do this. All I need is discipline. I'm going to put my butt in the chair and I'm just going to go. Let me know in the chat if you're guilty of this, right? It is useful to have discipline in writing a book, okay? And you do need to write. There's no getting around that. But when it comes to writing a nonfiction book, this is completely backwards, believe it or not, okay? Because in the traditional publishing nonfiction world, you don't write the book first. Actually, instead you write a book proposal. Traditional publishers don't want to see your book. They don't care about your book. In fact, if you've written a book and you send it to a traditional publisher, they're like, oh, this person doesn't understand the process. They don't get it, okay? Traditional publishers expect one thing. They expect a book proposal. What is a book proposal? Why do we have to write one? Is that surprising to any of you as I say this? And again, just to be really clear, don't write, if you want to get traditionally published, your book first. Write a book proposal. So what's in a book proposal? And I did share a resource for a template that we use at The Right Practice and that I personally use. This is the template I've used to get, 6-figure book advances for my clients. All right? So let's talk about some of the components in a book proposal. The first thing is you need a title and a subtitle, kind of obvious things. You also need some author information, a biography, and here you're really setting up your authority and why you are the right person to write this book. You need to have a premise, and guess what? This is one of the most important pieces of the entire book proposal, and you have already done it. That is right. That is your 1-sentence summary of your book. You already have one of these. We worked on it together. It might, potentially use a little more work, and that's fine. I've spent months working on premises. But you've already done the first step, which is pretty cool. You need a brief synopsis, usually 3 paragraphs, 4 paragraphs, half a page. You need a chapter by chapter summary. So you're going to list out the chapters, okay? And then you're going to have a paragraph or so of description for each chapter and what the takeaway is for that chapter. You need a book overview. This also tends to contain things like how long the book is going to be, when it's going to be turned in, right? And who is the forward author going to be? When you're thinking about forward authors, this is a really useful way to potentially get a book deal, because if you can have someone who is a pretty successful author write a forward for you, publishers just like it. They just think that's great. And so you want to look for people who you know in your network, ideally, who have maybe a bestseller tag. They've written a best-selling book, or who have a large platform, but ideally another author, okay? Your target market, you're going to describe your target market. We usually do this in terms of a primary audience, a secondary audience, and a tertiary audience. I don't know why they use tertiary. It's a very complicated word. That's just what we do. Marketing information. Is tertiary third, or is it like side, on the side audience? I don't actually know this. What is tertiary? Goodness, does anyone know? I probably should know this. Anyway, gosh. Marketing information. So how are you going to market the book? How are you going to share it? How are you going to sell a lot of copies? Okay, this is one of the most important sections of the proposal, believe it or not. And you need to have 2 sample chapters. Just 2. You don't need to have a whole book. 2 sample chapters. Usually the first and the second chapter, the intro and the first chapter. Sometimes it'll be every once in a while, like the intro in chapter 6. I've done that before. Is tertiary third? That's shocking. What a weird word. Man, learn new things every day. All right, 2 sample chapters. So those are the components of a book proposal, right? It's not too hard. But here's what most aspiring writers get wrong. They just start writing. They get an idea for a book. They do some research. Maybe they even do some outlining. And then they just start writing. But published nonfiction authors, they don't write the book. Not even until they get a book deal, okay? Published authors write a book proposal first, all right? Man, tertiary is third. Amazing. Good to know. Thanks, everyone. All right, let's get into our second myth. Oh, and by the way, like even if you don't want to traditionally publish, it's still very useful to work on a book proposal because you need this throughout the publishing process. You need to have a strong outline. You need to kind of know how you're going to market your book. You need to learn who your audience is and have a clear understanding of who you're writing to. So all of these things are useful, even if you're not planning to traditionally publish. And if you do want to traditionally publish, you absolutely need it, okay? So work on the book proposal first. If you're working on nonfiction, all right, just do the book proposal first. Yes? Can we all agree to that? Cool thing is, you've already done the first step, which is a proposal or a premise, and you have the template for you as a free resource. So it should be easy. You got this. Okay? All right. The next myth that so many writers believe is this, and this feels shocking to a lot of people and uncomfortable, and I'm uncomfortable with it too. It feels a little sad, but the reality is a great book idea, even a great book itself, is not enough to get published. So many writers believe that if you just have a great idea, or if you just are an amazing writer as a nonfiction author, that will be enough, that will allow you to get published. And unfortunately, and probably wrongly, it's just not true, okay? Because in the traditional publishing world, more and more, this is becoming even more true than ever, traditional publishers want to know that you have a platform, okay? They don't even want to talk to you unless you have a platform, okay? Major publishers actually don't usually talk to authors at all. They talk to agents, right? So you need to have a literary agent, and literary agents are looking for authors with a platform, with a relationship with an audience. So what is a platform? Okay, it's kind of a technical term. A platform is the relationship that you have and the authority you have with an audience. Okay, the relationship and authority that you have with an audience. And usually, that audience needs to be significant. I usually tell people that a good starting point for an audience is about 10,000 people before you can get traditionally published and start to talk to people. Now, that's a very specific number, and it can vary a lot, right? I know people who have had more than 10,000 people and they struggle to get published. And I know people who have had fewer people, though not often, and have gotten published. But usually you need to have at least 10,000 people, and really the more the better. Now, what does a platform actually look like? And when you think about 10,000 people, what does that actually look like? It can look like a lot of different things. So this is my friend, Dr. Amy West, and she is an Instagram influencer, among any other things. She's also had articles published in the New York Times that feature her. She is an author of textbooks. She works at a major hospital group in New York. So she has a lot of different platforms, but probably her main one is on Instagram, where she has about 32,000 followers. That's pretty good, right? That's kind of a good starting place to get a book deal, okay? And she did get a book deal, 6-figure book deal. She's doing really good. Her book should come out 2026, somewhere around there. It's awesome. This is my friend Tim Brown. Tim is a retired New York firefighter, and he was on the scene at Ground Zero and has an amazingly powerful story of his experience on 9/11. Incredibly powerful. And he speaks to over 10,000 people a year. He's really involved in nonprofits and in working with wounded warriors and working with 9/11 survivors and their families. Okay? So Tim's primary platform is as a speaker, right? He speaks to police departments, fire departments, to the military, and to all of us, right? About 9/11. Powerful storyteller. And this is Stephen Carr. So I mentioned Stephen already. His platform is that he runs a popsicle company. And on his popsicle company, they have tens of thousands of people on their email list, and they're handing out popsicles to people all over Atlanta especially, but even outside of Atlanta. Okay? So that's an example, or some examples of a platform and how to get those 10,000 people. And I just want to say, if you don't have 10,000 people, that's okay, right? Because a book can build your platform. It can be a way to start connecting with those people. But it's unlikely that you're going to get traditionally published unless you already have a platform, okay? And it varies depending on your authority level. So it's easier if you're a doctor or a university professor to get a book deal. It's a little bit harder if you're just, an average person like me, right? But 10,000 is a good starting point. A book can be part of that, but if you want to get traditionally published, you need 10,000. How are we feeling right now? I just want to do a quick check-in. I know that this can feel uncomfortable, upsetting, surprising, maddening, and I get that. I felt all those things before. Let me know in the chat how you're feeling about it. Now, if you don't have 10,000 people, you need to focus on your author platform. And there are some basics when it comes to author platform that I just want you to be thinking about. First, you need to have a website. Having a website's a really important, easy first step that you can absolutely do. A platform that we really like right now for building an author website is called Tertulia, and we have a link there where you can sign up for that and learn more. It's pretty cool. You need to have an email list. Emails is one of the best ways to get those 10,000 people, right? It's one of the best ways to sell your books. So my favorite platform for email is ConvertKit, formerly known as ConvertKit. Now they're called Kit. And you can get a link to their offer. And I think that you can get up to 10,000 people for free, which is pretty cool. therightpractice.com/kit. You need to have some social media platforms. Don't go crazy with social media. You don't need to be everywhere. I like to be on one or two. That's where I think people are usually best. So whether that's LinkedIn or YouTube or Threads or Twitter or whatever, right? Pick one or two and post regularly. Once a day is a really good number, all right? And this can be a cool way to practice sharing your ideas, right? Where you maybe take your book chapters and over the course of a year, post it in little snippets, not necessarily in order, but just ideas from each chapter, or stories from each chapter, one little piece at a time on these social media platforms. That can be a really cool way to test your idea and to share your idea in a way that you don't need permission. You don't need a publisher. You're just sharing it with people online, right? And you can find me at Threads too, and I'll like you and like your stuff and share it with my people as well. All right? So think about that. And then some kind of live event. With nonfiction, it's usually nice to have live event. In fact, speaking can be one of the best ways to both build a platform and to profit off of a platform. Some of my clients earn more than $10,000 per speaking engagement, right? Which isn't bad for about an hour of work where you're talking to an audience and getting $10,000. That's a great way to do it as a writer, okay? And some kind of live event is a great way to build your platform as a speaker. Tony is in the chat saying, feeling upset, demoralized, overwhelmed, despairing. Totally get that, Tony. I've been there. What about Substack? Substack can be an awesome way to do that. I would include it as kind of all three of these, right? Substack is a website. It is an email list. It is a social media platform. There's some advantages of having this on your own and not using a platform like Substack. You don't own your platform on Substack. Substack owns it. But you can get all of those things in Substack, which is nice. And it can be really useful. All right. Stacy is feeling overwhelmed. I totally get that, Stacy. I've been overwhelmed too. But you can dig your way out of this one idea shared online at a time. All right? And we can do it together. All right. The third myth that so many people believe is that every book is unique. That you have a unique story, a unique message, and your book is going to be totally different to any other book. And the reality is that best-selling nonfiction books follow specific structural patterns. I'm a huge fan of structure. I wrote a whole book about structure that turned into a best-selling nonfiction book, speaking of. And structure is so useful, I think. And so let's just talk about some structure things that will help you as you go to think about your book, as you go to create your chapter summaries, and then go on to write your book as well. All right, I'm going to share 5 of these. There's a few more, but I think 5 are the most common and the most useful for our purposes. All right, so the first type of nonfiction book, and as I go through these, let me know which one sounds most like you. I would love to just connect about what you're trying to do there in the chat. So the first is how-to or self-help. Here we're really focusing on the problem that you're trying to solve for readers' lives and give them some practical principles to do that. All right? Oops. Goodness. So usually there are going to be specific chapters that focus on steps or principles, okay? And they're going to be applying and using case studies to do that. Okay, so a good example is my friend Jason's book, Overcome. And he has like 12 or so chapters that focuses on principles to overcome. How do you overcome the biggest adversities in your life? Jason was in the SEALs and he was shot in the face in Afghanistan, was nearly died, was bleeding out on the desert ground, and miraculously made it back to base, had 50 surgeries or so later, and he survived and is now doing great. How do you overcome that kind of thing in your life? Practical principles and steps. That's what how-to and self-help is all about. Next you have investigative. Investigative focuses on a problem, but it's really asking a lot of questions. There might be principles, but really we're focusing on trying to figure out what's really going on here and how to solve it. Okay? So Malcolm Gladwell does a really good job of this format where his books are filled with some kind of how-to elements, right? You think about the 10,000 hour rule, for example, but it's really about discovery. Okay, he's asking questions throughout and investigating and kind of like, true crime is another example of this, which is obviously specifically about investigating, but Malcolm Gladwell and other kind of science authors are asking questions and looking for answers. Now, reference can be a really great nonfiction format. All right, here you're focusing on a lot of problems or a lot of promises. You're giving a lot of information. They're very short. There is always a short intro and often a short conclusion as well. But most of the content and chapters are focused just on solving one problem at a time, one topic at a time. So my friend Josh Kaufman has a really amazing book, the Personal MBA, which kind of collects all of these topics around studying business. Okay, my book, The Right Structure, is another example of a reference book. Okay, so think about reference books as a collection of answers to problems. Next is inspirational or how-to memoir. These are more story-driven. They're very close to memoir. In fact, they might have a lot of memoir elements, but they are focusing on principles. They're still kind of how-to, okay? So we talked about Jen Chen, her book, Dim Sum and Faith. Here she's having faith-driven principles brought around through her own life and experience and those of the people she knows. All right? Now, Riff is a really fun format, especially if you've been doing this for a while. A lot of my favorite writing books, how-to books, are kind of more like riffs. So you're combining a lot of different chapter structures. Some of them can be short, some of them can be long, some are more story-driven, some are more just gut punches of truth, right? And it's varied. That's the main thing. With Riff, Stephen Pressfield's The War of Art is a great example. Stephen King, a lot of Stephens in this. Anne Lamott, her book, Bird by Bird. Riffs are fun. Next is biography. I know some of you are working on biography, and it's the full story of this famous person, all right? You're giving their entire life story from beginning to end. We're not focusing on principles or steps, just their story from beginning to end. Now, here is a gut punch of truth, is that for it to be biography and for it to work for traditional publishing, they must be notable, right? So you think of Alexander Hamilton, you think of a celebrity biography, George Washington, right? Historical biography. They have to be a notable person for this to work for traditional publishing. Unfortunately, usually for most of us, an autobiography is not going to work for traditional publishing unless you're famous, in which case, that's amazing. I'm happy for you. Write your autobiography. All right? C.S. Lewis, Surprised by Joy is just a small example. I read that a few years ago. It's nice. By that point, when he wrote that book, he was a very famous author, right? So it worked. And for most of us, we're not going to get that book published, sadly. Now, memoir is different, okay? It is not the full story. It says that. I should change that. I apologize. Really, here we're focusing on a specific topic as illustrated by their life experience, all right? So, educated, right? An example of a cult-like upbringing, as illustrated by, or escaping a cult, as illustrated by Tara Westover's experience escaping a cult, right? And this book sold hundreds of thousands of copies. It was on the New York Times bestsellers list for 125 weeks. It did very well. But this topic wasn't Tara Westover. The topic was how she survived and escaped and got educated, right? Changed her worldview. Okay? So that's the difference between memoir and biography. Does that make sense for those of you who are working on memoir or biography? So that's all of them. Let me know in the chat which one sounds most like you. That would be great. All right? Now, last myth that too many writers believe and that holds them back is this, that I need to do this all myself. It's my job solely to write a book, to get an agent, to get published, to become a bestseller, that it's all on you. And having worked with authors for the last 15 years, I found that almost never are they doing it on their own. Almost always they have a team. Most authors need a team. Most authors who are traditionally published and get six-figure advances have a team. They have people in their corner who are helping them, maybe with their website, maybe with social media, maybe editing their book, maybe ghostwriting their book, okay, maybe helping them get a literary agent. There are 4 teammates especially I want you to be thinking about. A coach, someone who can teach them the process, all right? Who can guide you through how to write a book proposal, who can give you feedback on that proposal, who can tell you how to get an agent, right? Who can point you in the right direction. And then an editor. We all need feedback on our writing. I do. I have an editor. I have multiple editors. You need an editor as well. We have teams of editors at The Right Practice. Not teams. We have one team of editors at The Right Practice. So if you need an editor, we're happy to help you. Having a ghostwriter sometimes is appropriate, especially if you have a large audience or you're just not sure that you can write your book. Especially if you think you can get traditionally published and you have a platform. And then an agent liaison. Okay, I've helped many writers who don't know how to get a literary agent because navigating publishing is confusing. I've helped them get agents, right? And that can be very useful. We do this not just to get our ideas out into the world, right? We do this to change people's lives. And I would just like you to think about how you can change people's lives with your idea and if we can't help you. So I have some resources that I want to share with you, and just let me know in the chat if you're okay with me sharing some of those ideas or resources. But the biggest thing I want you to get out of this is that you have something important to share with the world, right? That you can change people's lives, and you don't have to do it all on your own, right? We all need help. I've gotten a lot of help along the way, from coaches to editors to people showing me how to get a literary agent. And you can do that as well, all right? You can get help. You can share your writing with the world. You can change people's lives. And might we not do that together? All right? So we have something happening right now in our community called the Book Proposal Challenge. Writing a book proposal is the very first step to this process. Whether you want to self-publish your book or get traditionally published, you need to have a book proposal. I honestly believe that everyone who is writing nonfiction needs to write a book proposal first. But writing a book proposal is a very specific document. It can be very confusing. Maybe you've never even read a book proposal before. Most people haven't. And so you don't know what the form looks like, and you want some help learning how to write one. Well, we're going to do one together in our community. We have a community of authors at the Write Practice. We actually have a cohort that we're guiding them through this process of writing a book proposal together. Okay? And we would love to invite you to join it. It actually closed on Monday, but we're extending the deadline so that we can share this with you. It closes tonight at midnight. So if you're interested in writing a book proposal, in writing nonfiction, in learning the process of getting traditionally published and doing it together within a community, and also getting feedback on your proposal, we would love to do that with you. All right? So I'm going to share the link to that in the chat. It's also, it's not there in the book, in the description. There we go. It's now in the chat. So we would love to invite you to do that with you. How this will work is you'll join the community. We're going to have some live events kind of like this one, but there will be recordings. We'll have some specific things that you'll work on. And then when you finish your book proposal in about 6 weeks or so, you'll get feedback from me or a member of our team who works on book proposals for clients. All right, so these are people, including me, who have gotten major advances from traditional publishers on books and proposals that they've worked on, and you'll get their feedback on how to make your proposal better. Okay, it's a really amazing thing, and you also write the proposal with us. So check that out, thewritepractice.com/proposal. Tony says, Joe has a great track record of successful coaching. Thanks, Tony. That's nice of you to say. We would love to do this with you and help you through this process. So let's just do a review for a second. We're going to take some time for questions, but let's take a moment to just review what we talked about. When it comes to writing a premise, which is the most important first step to your book proposal, you need 3 things. You need a problem or a promise. You need to focus on the person. Who is the person? That might be the topic, but it's probably you. It might be your audience, all right? But the person is so important. And then a unique solution. What is your unique take? The principles, the program that you're going to guide people through to solve the problem, all right? And then finally, a special sauce, something that makes your book totally unique to the world. We use this formula, which is especially useful, as I said, for inspirational how-to, for how-to, reference. It can be useful, investigative. It's not as useful for biography. I apologize to the biographers among us. It's not as useful for memoir even. It can be useful for memoir. Depends on how-to-y. This is more of a how-to one. All right, secret number 1 that we talked about is to write the book proposal first. Before you write the book proposal. Next is to work on your platform, all right? To work on your platform. If you don't have an audience of 10,000 people and you want to get traditionally published, that can be a great place to start. And if you're working on history or biography, you know, I follow so many people who share these things online and have incredible platforms, right? It can be a great place to get started sharing your ideas and practice. Platform is practice. It's practice at sharing your idea in public, and you get feedback and you grow as a writer. One of the things I should have said is that next week, actually, we're going to start a new challenge where we share our work on social media. It's our Social Media for Writers Challenge. And we're going to spend some time thinking about social media and how you can do that well within community. And we would love to have you as part of that. So when you sign up for the book proposal challenge, you'll get that as well. And it is part of 1 year as well. Marilyn, thanks for that. You need to find the right structure, okay? find the right structure for your book. Knowing what kind of book that you're writing is so useful. We talked about some of the different structures for nonfiction. You need to start building your team. No one does this on their own. I've worked with so many writers, many of whom have gotten six-figure advances. None of them are doing it on their own. We all need a team, and we would love to be part of your team in this community, all right, in this book proposal challenge. So if that sounds interesting to you, go to therightpractice.com/proposal. This does end tonight. So at midnight, the challenge will close, and you will not get to do this with the cohort. You will still be able to do this, all right? You'll still have a chance to go through all the content after tonight, but you won't be able to do this with a community of other writers who are doing it together. So join us. It would be fun. All right. All right, let's go into our time of questions. I would love to hear what questions that you have about all of this, right? About the writing process, about book proposals, publishing. What questions do we have about nonfiction? If you have questions specifically about the book proposal challenge, we would love to have those questions too. Karen said, I did 100-day book last year, and I'm taking the book proposal challenge. It's a gift to myself. Amazing, Karen. Very excited to see how your idea evolves over the next 6 weeks or so. Tony is doing both 100-day book and the proposal. Very cool. Stacy, asks, can I do 100-day book and the book proposal? You can. So the one thing is, because this is a specific challenge and we're giving feedback from our coaches, there is a small upcharge. Not small, I don't know whether it's small or not to you. But to do another challenge, it's $250. And that basically covers the critique that you'll get from your coach. All right? So if you want to get feedback on your book proposal, we would love to have you do that. All right? And that would be a great, fun way to do that together. Thanks, Stacy. And Marilyn, same thing. Yeah, it's you can take all the content as part of 1 year to publish, but there is that fee just to pay our editors, coaches. Any other questions about nonfiction? If you've ever wondered, how do you get published? What's the process? How do you find an agent? I'm here to answer those questions for you, or we can wrap up, which is fine, right? It's 2:03 my time. So if you have any questions about the nonfiction process, please let me know. Find me on Threads. I would love to see you there, and we can start working on all of our social media platform empires there together. We're going to be doing that platform challenge soon. That's going to be super fun, and we would love to have you participate in that. That's open to all members of our community. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to therightpractice.com/join. And we'll see you in that challenge. I think that's it. I'm not seeing any other questions, or maybe I'm missing them, but feel free to ask me another time or send me a note. All right, everyone. Happy writing. I hope this was useful to you. Excited to see your books in print one day. Here are, the books that I talked about today, and they're all published in the last year, which is so fun. I love seeing people that I've worked with coming out with amazing books. And I would love to see your book in print too. Maybe I'll be holding it soon. Happy writing. Happy proposaling. Thanks, everyone. We will see you all very soon. Bye.